Yeah, fairly well.
All right.
And we're live as of right now.
All right.
And I'll go over to the YouTube channel here and get the link and see. Why are we not live on YouTube? That's where I cast it to. Huh. It says we're live. 1 second. I tell everybody whatever the opposite of technical support is, that's me. There we are. Now I have to mute it so I don't have any feedback. All right, so now we got plenty of places for people. We already got 2 live watchers. All right, while I was getting the bugs out. Howdy, everybody. We're live here with William Mitchem Jr. He's my guest and co-host tonight. Talking about everybody's favorite cryptid, or at least my favorite cryptid, and the internet's already knocked him off the... He might have to hit the join link again, William. Internet's being touchy out here in the boondocks tonight. So like I said, we're discussing everybody's favorite, or my favorite anyway, cryptid anyway, with him. We welcome any questions. I've got about 3 different screens open to get your questions off of. I'll check them routinely, since people seem to have trouble posting their comments to live StreamYard for some reason due to the permissions. Anyway, thank you for being here. God bless you.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So you said you were in Southern Illinois. Now,
yes, sir.
I've been through Indiana, and I always pictured Illinois kind of like Indiana. Is that accurate? Kind of a plain state?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. I mean, we have our hills, we have the Shawnee National Forest and everything, but pretty much the plains. It's pretty much Indiana, Kentucky, same thing.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about Indiana. Like I said, we went through there. I had a friend lived in Evansville.
Right.
And we go up there and go fishing in a little tributary off of the Wabash River, right there on the border.
Right.
And every time we went up there, we'd always laugh going up I-64 there, and we'd pass this little sign that said Indiana National State Park, some kind of park, and there's like 6 trees in the middle of a gigantic clearing, and that's all you saw for miles. And apparently
we
that's their state park up there.
That's funny.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. I was like, that's the strangest park I've ever seen. I know, despite it being a plain state like Kentucky, everybody thinks Bigfoot's only in the Pacific Northwest or the Himalaya Mountains. But Illinois has got a pretty good history background with it. Correct?
You're cutting out a little bit, so it's hard to tell what you're saying.
I'm saying, despite the fact a lot of people think that Sasquatch is only out in the Pacific Northwest, Illinois has a pretty good history and background as well with them, don't they?
Oh, it does. There's a lot of sightings in Illinois. We have the Big Muddy Monster here in Murfreesboro. There was some sightings in West Frankfort, Illinois, back in '79. Kind of like some think it was a junkyard, but it was more of actually a hobo trail. It ran beside the railroad tracks and everything, and there was a hobo camp out there, or used to be. And guy seen our kid was on his bicycle riding that trail, and he seen one out there back in 1979. That's listed on the BFRO as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we've had
That's
recent
interesting.
sightings. I had my own. What's
Go
that?
ahead. I was going to say, it's
No, what were you
interesting. You
saying?
talk about being near railroad tracks and the whole area. I've one of my harebrained theories, or whatever you want to call it. Here, not too long ago, we had a black bear in downtown Lexington, Kentucky. Nobody, how in the world is bear in downtown rural metropolitan area without anybody seeing it? Well, the train tracks run right through downtown Lexington.
Right, follow those tracks.
I said a bear or anything else could climb on a train car, get in a box car,
Yeah,
up in the mountains, and wake up in Lexington. Same with the Sasquatch. They could hitch a ride.
Well, there was a creek in that area that is a tributary off of it runs out of the Big Muddy and comes down through West Frankfort. In fact, I think it's called Big Muddy Creek, to be honest. I don't remember. But that was in 1979, and they had sightings there. I believe it was in the 60s, 70s, and like 88, I believe was the last one they had there at Murfreesboro. You've heard of the Big Muddy Monster, right?
I've heard a little bit about it just recently. Daniel been wanting to talk about it. I heard a lot of detail about it. Sounds interesting. And
I honestly, I can't say I don't know a whole lot. I know about as much about it as everybody else, really. I know my father-in-law was a detective on the case in the '70s. So, and he hasn't said much. He just said it stunk really bad.
That's interesting. It seems like it goes about, yeah, it seems like it goes about 50-50 with the smell. Some people report it and some people don't.
Right.
Now, did you say you're a member of the BFRO up there?
No, I'm not a member. No.
Oh, okay.
No, independent researcher.
All right, that's me. I don't have anything against the BFRO. I've just never spent the money to officially sign up.
Right. No, I had I heard all the stories when I was younger, and everything. And that's when I always wanted to see Bigfoot and all this. And I got to go to a museum where they supposedly had one. My father was friends with the guy that owned the Wildlife Museum. He was a big game hunter. But my personal experience, I encountered back in '91, I believe it was, here in Southern Illinois, outside of Marion, in a place called Crenshaw. A friend of mine it was my cousin. We was out, we was going to be shooting a gun, just test shooting a shotgun. It was dark, no lights, moonlight's all we had. And we walked into the strip cut area. It was just a field, a little water to the side of us, and then, the wood line. And we started hearing this god awful scream. I didn't have a clue. I just looked at him and he looked at me, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't have a clue what that is. It sounded like a cross between a night bird and a woman, some kind of night. I know it wasn't a big cat because I've heard plenty of those. And it was just a horrid sound. And then out of nowhere, this thing come running right between my cousin and I. It stood, I guess it probably would, if it would have stood up straight, it kind of charged between us, and it was kind of leaned over with its arms down right next to it. Come running right between us. My cousin and I was about 5 to 6 feet apart. So we was, it comes right between us, and I guess it would have been, if it would have stood up straight, probably 8 foot tall. Didn't make a sound when it ran between us. Didn't do anything to us. It scared us. There's no doubt about that. But by the time we got turned around, it was gone. It was just gone. Didn't hear anything, no more sounds. It stunk. It was like stagnant water, a wet dog smell.
Mm-hmm. Did you
But
make out the color?
it was a brownish color. It was hard to see that night though.
Yeah.
But it was a brownish. It was a darker brownish color. I wouldn't say it was black. It was well, I have a picture of the museum one. It was about like the one in this picture, but it had longer hair. The hair was longer than the one I'll show in, when we start talking about the other thing.
Okay.
But I haven't seen one since. I've had another encounter experience kind of thing where one was slapping our house in Pittsburgh, Illinois. My wife and I, we come home one night and decided to take a walk around the property and everything, and we heard this howl. It was a real long, deep howl. And my wife said, "What was that?" And I'm like, I don't know. She goes, "Well, is it a dog? Is it a wolf?" I'm like, "No." I said, it's too loud, too deep, and too long. And I don't know if you know Zach Sterick or not, but
Name doesn't ring any bells.
he's Southern Illinois monster hunters. He's a friend of Daniel's too. I called him up. I said, "Are you guys doing anything?" And he said, "What's up?" And I said, "Well, we got something out here." And he said, "What's it doing?" And I told him, and he come on out with him and his brother. And I took him to the area where it come from, and we found some tracks. And we went on back into the wooded area, and then there was like a bunch of chattering, just a ton of chattering. I like a bunch of them. And I told him, we thought it was barred owls because it had that same kind of chatter. I said, "Yeah." I said, "But why are they on the ground?" They were like all over around us on the ground. And then the chatter started getting louder, like it was madder and madder. And he goes, "I think we need to go." He said, "Something's mad." So, I figured he had more experience than I did at that time. And I just took his advice and said, "We need to leave."
Yeah.
I couldn't see anything out there. But
never ignore that gut feeling or instinct or whatever you want to call it. When it tells you it's time to go, it's time to go.
Right. Well, 2 days later, I was doing something on the property and I found a track. I called my wife out there. It was one solitary track, just one. No other tracks around. It couldn't go to any trees. It couldn't have jumped that far to go to the wood line or anything like that. I mean, it was just one track, but it was about 13 feet long. Had the toe prints and everything. And my wife and daughter was at the house one night when I was gone, and they seen a shadow go by the window, and then the house gets slapped a few times. And the window was high enough off the ground that it wasn't a normal, size human would have walked past that. Plus, we was out in the country anyway at that time. So those are the only two personal experiences I had myself as far as seeing one, and then the house slaps and everything like that. Everything else has been dealing with anybody else's stuff or seeing other things like that.
The researcher you spoke of there, does he have a pro wrestling podcast as well?
Yes.
He's the one I listened to on Daniel's show talking about the Big Muddy then.
All right.
That was him. Okay.
Yep.
I was going to ask you, mentioned the chatter sounded like barn owl. So you hear everybody talk about, I've never heard this in particular. I've heard something that sounds like, I call it the 60-pound dove. I was like, that's something trying to sound like a dove. But if it's a dove, it's 60 pounds and it's riding in my back pocket.
Right.
But everybody talks about the samurai chatter, or that's what everybody calls it. Everybody kind of hijacked that from Ron Moorhead.
Right.
Did it sound similar to what they call the samurai chatter? Or?
It sounded like a bunch of mad monkeys is what it sounded like to me. I know you can look up a barred owl and hear that type of chatter, but it sounded more, to me, my opinion, sounded like chimpanzees, like monkeys chattering. And then they was getting mad and louder. The closer you walked in, the louder they got, and then more would start. It started out with one chatter, and the farther we went in, more, another one had come chattering too, and then more. It was like at least 3 or 4 of them, and they got really loud. And that's when he said, I didn't bring any protection with us. He said, "I think we need to go. Something I think is mad." And I'm like, well, I don't. If it's an owl, it wouldn't be on the ground.
Hmm.
There was no reason for them to be on the ground. At least that's my opinion. I could be completely wrong about
I
that.
agree. Owls don't spend much time touching the ground. They swoop down, grab
Right.
whatever they're after, right back up. I
Right.
don't think I've ever seen an owl actually on the ground. Now that I
The
stop and think about it.
only time I've seen an owl on the ground is when he swooped down and grabbed a mouse or something.
Well, like I said, I've seen them swoop down and grab something and scoop. I've never seen them actually stay on the ground for any
Right.
more than a couple seconds.
Right.
That's interesting. The house slapping, we had that happen here a few times. Did you all do anything to dissuade it or back it off or
No,
put an
we
end
didn't even
to it?
bother. We didn't even bother it. I went out in the woods looking some other times for it, but I didn't find much out there. A few of the bent limbs and everything like that. But never. My wife was out there hanging laundry one night or one evening, and she hair stood up on the back of her neck, and she said something started growling out there. And at that time, I still wasn't thinking of that. I said, "Well, was it a coyote or something?" She said, "No." She goes, "It was bigger than a coyote." She goes, "It was big and deep." She goes, "I come in the house." So
Yeah. That's pretty, I wouldn't say commonplace, but out of the reports I've heard, now, you're by far, so far, if everybody I talked to came the closest when it passed between you and your cousin, literally reach out and touch it distance. I haven't
we
talked to
probably
anybody
could
else that
have
got that close. I can't imagine.
reached out and touched it, but we didn't. I guess we was about
Yeah.
19 years old, 18, 19 years old when that happened. And I'll be 50 in March. So it's been a while back and I haven't forgot it. I mean, we were scared. There's no doubt
Oh,
because,
I
something
don't
that
blame you.
big come running between you.
Something happens that sudden and that unexpected and
Right. And you're
unexplained.
hearing all
Anybody
that
that
noise
says they're
prior
not
to it.
scared, yeah, I was gonna say
Right.
anybody in that situation tries to tell you they're not scared. I don't call people a liar very often. They're either
Right.
lying or there's something wrong with them.
Something's broken up there.
Anybody, yeah, anybody with any common sense is going to be a little bit alarmed anyway.
Right.
I mean, even if it's not a Sasquatch, if it's a wolf or a bear that
Mm.
close, you better be worried.
Well, I had a friend I met later on in life, and he was over one time, and we had on like Monster Quest or something like that. When it was new, it was just playing in the background, and it was a Sasquatch episode, and then it had supposedly where they had caught the sound of one of them, and when it screamed, me and him just quit talking, just kind of looked at the TV, and his girlfriend and everything. She looked at us and was like, "What's wrong? You both are white as a ghost." And I just kind of looked at him, and he looked at me. I said, "You've heard that before?" And he just shook his head. Yeah. He said, "I lived out in Crenshaw." And I was like, "Uh-oh," because that's where I saw that. And he said, "I lived out in Crenshaw." He was probably about 5 years younger than I was. And he said, "I was out in the backyard." He said, "I always looked out in this field and I seen something out there one time and I didn't know what it was." And I just kind of stared at it, but it kind of started walking towards me. So I ran in. He said the next day, he said, "I come home from school." He said nobody was home. And I looked out the window and he said, and it was looking at, I don't remember whether he said it was looking from the wood line or looking in the window. It was something. I don't remember because it wasn't my experience. But he said that thing haunted him. He said forever. He said, "'Cause he heard it scream out there a few nights, just that same sound. And he didn't go out much without, other people being outside you know, until he got older." And I told him about the experience that I told you about, and come to find out, it was about the same time frame. It was in 1991 that all that happened, and it was the same sound.
Mm-hmm. Just the thought, like you said, that something that big can move that fast and sneak right up on you that close without you even knowing it's there.
Yeah, we
until it.
couldn't hear a thing. We didn't hear a thing as far as rustling, walking, stepping, running. In fact, it was on us before I ever heard anything running.
Mhm.
You
Well,
know, so I didn't.
that goes across encounters I've read and listened to on podcasts. People I've talked to, they talk about can't believe something that big can move that fast and that graceful and that quiet. And you hear
Oh,
a lot of reports where they're compared almost like they were gliding.
that's what I started to say. It was very smooth, fluid like. It was just
Mm-hmm.
when it ran, it was like it was just so with ease. It was no. It was like there was no exertion whatsoever. I can't even explain it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It was just so smooth. And by the time, and like I said, it was dark there, but it wasn't so dark that, we should have had time to turn around
Mm-hmm.
and see it. And it was just gone. We don't know whether it went to the left, the right, straight ahead, where it went. It was just gone, so we don't have a clue where it went.
Yeah. And that's just like you mentioned, only finding one print. I did that the other day, about 2 weeks ago now. You probably saw the one I posted. Uh, there was other little impressions and stuff some distance away from it. Could have been part of a print, or I thought maybe it
Right.
was. I'm like, yeah, and that's another. You hear reports of that all the time. We found one print,
Mm-hmm. And the one
and
I
like you said, there's
found,
no trees nearby for it to jump up in, or
right. And the one I found was it had been raining, so it was really wet. So you would have thought that any kind of weight would have left more prints. And it
hmm,
was that one solitary print. So,
yeah.
which is kind of funny because it was kind of out by the clothesline where my wife was that time. Let's hear the growling.
Mom's heard growling outside late at night, and I'm a heavier sleeper than she is, but she's told me more than once I heard something growling out in the yard or down along the fence tree line around the yard. She said it sounded like a really big dog. I was like, Mom, I don't think that's a dog.
Right.
And
And
even if
you're
you woke
located
me
in
up, I'm not
Lexington,
going out there.
right? Are you located in Kentucky?
Yeah, I'm in the north central, more or less the northern part of the bluegrass
All
area.
right.
I'm roughly almost smack dab between Lexington and Cincinnati.
All
It's
right.
about 50-ish miles to Lexington and 50 miles to the Ohio River, the other
Gotcha.
direction. So we're like you. We don't have any mountains here. We got hills and valleys and hollers, as we call them in
Right.
Kentucky.
Lots of hollers.
Most northern and western people, when you say a holler, they're like, "What? What? Holler is something you do at somebody." No, a holler down there. That's just like we call the trunk of a car a boot here. You tell somebody from the north, I'm gonna put something in the boot. They're like, you can't fit that in your boot. The car boot, not my boot.
Actually, I've never heard that one.
It might just be a Kentucky thing. I don't. It was like the whole pop and soda thing. North of the Mason-Dixon, it's soda. South, it's pop.
I got to where I call it everything anymore. My wife will look at me and go, "You're not from there. Don't call that pop."
I call it Mountain Dew because that's the only one I drink.
There you go. Everything's a Coke, right?
uh, you said you had something else you wanted to show us or discuss there, the picture from the museum?
Oh, let me see that. It's kind of hard to do on the phone. Everything's backwards. Can you see
It's pretty
that?
clear. Yeah.
That is from a museum that used to be in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, off Highway 60 South. My grandfather was friends with this guy, and he was a big game hunter. He had gotten called to India because there was a man-eating tiger that was eating the villagers or town, or I guess it was a village. I'm not sure. But the tiger itself was huge, huge, and it killed over 100 people. And they called this guy, and his name was J.R. Baker. He was a taxidermist and a big game hunter,
Mhm.
and they called him in to get the tiger, and of course he got it too. But later on, like I said, he was friends with my grandfather, and later on, he supposedly got this Bigfoot. And this is the picture from that museum. And he would never tell my grandfather where he got it. He didn't tell anybody where he got it. It had been there. I don't know how long it had been there. I don't know how long. I know I finally got the chance to see it myself, but the FBI ended up showing up one day when JR was there, and they wanted to see. And he let them see it, as far as seeing it like this picture here, behind the glass. And they wanted to, autopsy it, study it, examine it, and he told them no. And they wanted to know why. Why would he let us look at it? He said, because if any part of that, he said, you'll get me for manslaughter. And the FBI looked at him and said, you're probably right. And they turned to leave. He said, we'll be back. It wasn't, I bet, a week after that JR shut the place down. And it had been there for quite a while. It shut the place down. Bigfoot disappeared. All the animals were gone. Nothing. Shut it down. So I have no clue where that Bigfoot is.
Like so much more you've said, that falls right in line with, if you're into this subject. I'm sure you've heard the rabbit hole as much as I have with the cover up.
Right. Well,
the government's got the bodies. They know what they are.
Right. I don't.
Which I've always said to that, I would hope our government, if there's a 8 to 10 foot tall hominid running around in the forests of North America, I would hope our government has some idea what they are.
Right.
If they don't, they're inept at their jobs.
Right. I don't think the government has this one. I think JR made it disappear. And I think it's a secret he took to his grave, because, like I said, he told my grandfather at that time, he said, I can't tell where I got this. He said, some places it's illegal, to kill one of these things. So at that time, I'm sitting here thinking, well, it's not supposed to exist in the States, so it can't be illegal to kill them in the States. So that means it might have come from a different country.
You said he came in India.
Yes, he was. Well, not just India. He was all over the world. He had animals from all over the world.
Got a young version of Sasquatch.
I didn't get you. It cut out.
I said, I was just thinking India's got its own version of Sasquatch. 6 out of 7 continents do.
Right. And if you
everywhere but Antarctica.
Can you see that face on that thing?
No, I can't make out the price.
Right. The hair on the one, the one in this picture looks about like the thing I seen in here in Southern Illinois, except the fur or hair or whatever you want to call it on the one I seen was longer, hung down longer. And I think the one that we seen, for some reason, I just feel that it was a female. I think because of the screaming sound that it was making, it didn't have a deep vocal range.
I've heard a few weird screams out in the woods myself at night. I tell everybody, once the sun goes down, I get out of the woods.
Right. I don't know. I've been silly enough to go in them without a flashlight and just walk them, which is, I've been lucky quite a few times, because I've had coyotes and stuff start to surround me, and just as I was making my way out, and so.
And that goes right along with what I tell people too. There's 100 things in the woods that can kill you. Bigfoot's only one of them.
Right. But I was
going to ask something. I had a brain blank. Go ahead.
Okay, I forgot what I was getting ready to say too. No, I did the same thing at the same time. I completely lost track of what I was saying.
That's bad when you can forget what you're doing while you're doing it.
Right. It's an age thing, I guess.
And the bad thing is, I'm only 44. So what am I going to be like when I get a few years on me? They'll have to put a bell around my neck.
I hate to tell you, it gets worse.
Well, we was talking about it could have come from somewhere else. Okay. I was going to say that you talk about, he said some places it's illegal. up in Tibet in the Himalayas, they consider the Yeti such a fact of life up there. They're a
Right.
sacred animal. It would just be
Right.
like shooting a cow in a Hindu nation.
Right. Right. And that's
You
what I
don't
was
do
thinking.
that.
I don't know where he got this creature. I believe it was real from what I seen. When I seen it, I was about 12, 13 years old though. So, I didn't get to examine it. I got to look at it. I was never allowed to see what you see in the pictures about the way I got to view it. I didn't get to
Yeah.
go all the way around it and all that stuff because they wouldn't let me see the front of it. I guess for certain reasons as a child, I didn't need to see the front of it, but I figure I don't know whether it looked human or dog like. You get what I'm saying. But anyways, the arms and everything, if you notice from the picture, I'll show it one more time and let you kind of see if I can get this to line up right. The proportion, well, shoot, I don't know which way I'm going here.
That's
Everything,
almost dead center there. Bring it down just a little. We can't see the head. Bring it down just a hair. There you go. Well, now we can't see the feet, but that's okay. We got a good look at it.
oh, okay, I got a way I can see it. There's the arms, the hands of the arms.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the feet. And then here's the head.
Yeah.
So as you can see, it's pretty much proportioned the way they're described,
Mm-hmm.
from sightings today. Now you have the ones that have the no necks. And honestly, I didn't pay attention to this one that much. If that thing had more fur on it, let me see if I can get it right. If that, can you see the head?
Yeah.
If it would
Yeah,
have
that's
more,
about the
more
waist
fur
up
on
there.
it, if it would have had more fur on it, it probably wouldn't have looked like it had a neck either. And its shoulders were really, really broad. And its hands, people always ask, well, couldn't he have put this together out of other animals? Well, I guess, yeah, he could have, if he wanted to, but the hands looked human to me. Like I said, I was 12. They did not look like gorilla hands or anything like that. They looked like human hands, but they were, uh, I guess you could say they were kind of gorilla colored. They were that blackish, brownish,
Charcoal kind of.
yeah, kind of like that. But his digits were really, really fat, plump, and his feet were, I think the feet on this one that I showed in the picture measured 18 inches long, and this one stood about 7'8". And let's see, I got a note here if I can find it. Excuse my blindness here.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
Give me just a second.
I take my glasses off or contacts out when I'm wearing them. I'm a fool in a china shop.
400 pounds, supposedly.
That's
So,
about right for something that height, I guess.
right.
Because I've talked to other researchers, and they talk about these creatures. People see them, and what you talk about the shoulders being so broad. That's what probably 9 out of 10. I'll tell you, it wasn't even the height that really disturbed me. It was its broadness and its thickness. Because
Right.
they'll talk about this thing was as wide as the cab of my pickup truck, and the shoulders are
right.
it was 3 or 4 foot thick through the chest.
When I seen this one, his shoulders were broad and everything, but to me, when I seen it in person, it seemed a little scrawny to me compared to what I was expecting, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know whether could have this one been a juvenile? Could it have been malnutrition? Could it have just been the way, whatever form he used to stretch the skin and fur over it?
I was going to
Because
say where it had been taxidermied, that could have had something to do with it.
Right, because
He had lost some of its mass in the process.
Right, this would have been the late 70s, early 80s. So, that's what I'm thinking is the way it was taxidermied and what form.
I had an uncle, if he was alive, he was an avid hunter and taxidermist, fisherman, ran a bait and tackle shop. He passed from a heart attack not too long, well, a few years ago. But now, if he was alive, he could probably tell us exactly what process he would have had to use in that time period to taxidermy. Because, I mean, that man had a disturbing amount of knowledge when it comes to stuff like that.
Right.
It was impressive at the same time disturbing.
Right. I know you can, if you look up J.R. Baker, which really strikes me odd, because as big as a big game hunter as he was, there's not much on the internet about him. But I know you can find some early taxidermist stuff where I think he was the president of the Taxidermist Club of America or something like that. Or, not for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I come to find out, I think he might have had a little bit of an ego too, because I was looking for something on him the other day for this podcast, and he had wrote a song about himself that he had a country artist make a 45 of. I ended up finding that on eBay. It was called "The Legend of J.R. Baker." So, and I can't find the song anywhere. I haven't heard the song. I can't find it to hear it. I'm going to end up having to see if I can find a 45 and purchase it, and then get the audio of it for people to hear.
If it exists at all, it'll be on eBay or Amazon.
Right. That's where
you can't find it on one or the other.
Right.
I know recently for Christmas I got some gift cards and money, and I just thought, well, I can't really get out because of the pandemic situation to go to bookstores and stuff. So I'll see if I can find me some new Bigfoot material book-wise. I never dreamed how much material is out there.
Oh,
You put in Bigfoot books, it's like 1,500 hits. I'm like, what? And I thought I had a pretty good library going. I was like, I never dreamed there was that much material out there. And same thing with DVDs and documentaries. Of course, YouTube is ate up with videos.
Yeah. But you can't believe everything on YouTube.
No. It's the thing about the internet. Now, the internet, whether it's real or not, it'll be on there.
Right. See, I work in the film industry as well, and I cannot stress enough to people, and I can't make people get it. Us people that I don't want to say us people, those people that are involved with the process, there's little telltale signs that you can tell when something is after, a thing called after effects or lighting or anything like that. And you'll tell
I saw one post where you shot one down real quick that told them how they did it. And
and they get mad. People get mad. I was banned from a group because of it.
There's one going around right now, supposed dog man, and I still haven't made up my mind if I believe in dog man or not. But I looked at it. I sat there for a second. I kind of looked over at my dog. I got an 85-pound bloodhound.
Right.
I said that is a normal canine popping a squat, and that's the position. You know how they'll hunker and they'll hold their haunches up and their backs kind of arch when they do nature's call.
I was telling somebody.
I sat there and looked at it.
I was telling somebody the other day, they were talking about dogmen and werewolves and if they were real or not. It's one of those things. I think it would be cool if they were. I can't say for a fact they are. I found a book in a local library one time. It was in the reference section. So these were books you couldn't check out. And it was nonfiction. And the book was from England. I wish I could remember the title because I tried to find the book. But this was probably about 1998, 2000, maybe that I found this book and I was reading it. And it was talking about werewolves and scientific study, and the lycanthropy disease and all this stuff. And then they said that they determined that actual werewolves do exist. And I'm like, what? Come on now. What? This is a scientific book.
I was going to say every other book I've read has been the opposite.
Right, exactly. So I thought, well, I'm going to go back and copy some of these pages and stuff. And when I went back, the book was gone. And I asked the library about it, and they didn't know what book I was talking about. They didn't know the title. They knew nothing. And I'm like, but it was right here in your reference section. They're like, we don't know what you're talking about. So either the book was never supposed to be there or somebody just walked off with it.
Either
But
one's
I
entirely
wish,
possible.
right. I wish I knew what the title was, because I would be like, hey, check this out. But other than that, I had a sighting of something back in, I think that's, I have it. I told the story on National Cryptid Society. It's there. I guess it was about 2007, 8. I may be wrong on the dates, but I was coming home from work between West Frankfort, Illinois, and Johnson City, Illinois, on Route 37, which is a 2-lane highway. And up in front of me, a deer ran across the road, a doe, and then all of a sudden, here comes this thing walking across the road, kind of hunched down, kind of like a cat would, except its back paw was at the beginning of the shoulder ditch line there, and its front paw was all the way over in the second lane of the 2-lane highway. I was like, what the heck is that big? It stood probably half the height back. The back hunkered down was about half the height of my car. That time I was driving a 2001 Saturn. And the only way I was ever to describe it to people is if you've seen the movie American Werewolf in London.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying it's a werewolf. I'm saying that's what it reminded me of. If I had to say it looked like something, that is what it looked like. It was huge. I could not see a tail. It had a big head. It was brownish grayish colored. The haunches were like how a hyena looks. The front shoulders are bigger than the back, and it looked just like that. It never stood up on two legs or anything. It stayed down, and I passed up where they crossed over, and I turned around to try to see what it was, and I never did get to see it again. But I did see the deer, and the deer was hunkered down in some trees. And I had never seen a deer shake like this deer was shaking. This deer was so terrifying. I mean, it was just, you could just see it shaking all over.
I don't blame it.
I don't blame it either. I don't know what I would have done if I actually would have seen this thing, because I was quite a distance away and you could tell it was huge, whatever it was. And it wasn't a cat. It was not, I've seen panther, mountain lion, whatever you want to call them. I've seen plenty of those growing up, and it wasn't a cat. I don't know what it was. It looked like a canine, but it wasn't a dog.
Yeah.
Now
You're kind of the opposite of me when it comes to dog man and werewolves and all that. I tell everybody they're one of the things I hope it ain't real. And if it is real, I hope I never run into one.
Now. Wouldn't you like to turn into a werewolf? Wouldn't you like to turn into a werewolf?
I'll pass. I've never had any desire to be a vampire, even when I was a teenager. I never went through a goth stage.
Right. I never did either.
And I'm not knocking it. If that's somebody's thing out there, for God's sake, don't send me hate mail. Oh, you don't like goths. You don't like vampires. Well, first of all, I don't believe vampires are real.
Right.
Second of all, I just don't want to be one. I ain't got nothing against them. Please don't send Count Dracula to my window. I'm not trying to start nothing with the vampires. I just don't want nothing to do with them. And I have known a couple.
Ones.
Yeah, so don't even get me started. If anything, if I ever had any interest in a vampire, that probably killed it dead right there.
Right.
Now, when it comes to the supernatural, like I tell everybody, the good book tells me to leave it alone. Don't traffic with spirits, necromancy, all that. So the good book says leave it alone. I leave it alone.
Right.
And I tell them, flesh and blood cryptids like Bigfoot, Thunderbirds, big cats, even Dogman if he's out there, if it's a flesh and blood creature. Push come to shove, a self-defense situation. If it bleeds, I can make it bleed.
Right.
Again, it can make me bleed too.
Right.
And probably will before I get a chance. But if it's a ghost or a spirit or a demon or alien or whatever, the rules might go right out the window or something like it. hot lead might be completely useless against it, according to the
useless.
legends. What's that?
I said completely useless.
Yeah. Now, I did hear one howl out here one night. I was out in the yard. And I've told everybody, I said, the only way I could describe it, it sounded like the most Wolfman of London werewolf howl out in the woods I'd ever heard in my life. It sounded like something straight out of a Hollywood movie.
Right.
That's when I was like, I'm going in the house and locking the door behind me. I don't want to know.
That night that my wife and I walked around the property, that's what the house sounded like to me and to her. It didn't sound sounded like a very, very huge wolf, but this thing would have been there isn't a wolf on the planet that could have howled as deep and as long as this thing did. And if it wouldn't have been for the footprint, and 2 days later that I found, I would have never thought it would have been a Sasquatch. I would have thought a huge wolf of some kind. That's one of those things. This because that was kind of
Now, I heard another vocalization, for lack of a better word, one day broad daylight, middle of the afternoon. And I always told people, I said, the only way I could describe it, I sounded like a crazy horse was on the rampage down there in the woods. I mean, it sounded like a Native American,
right,
whoop and holler, war cry, expect him to come flying out of the woods on his war pony any second. I only heard that once. And that didn't really bother me. It was just odd. It was like, somebody said, well, it was some kind of bird. I was like, no, you had to hear it. Way too loud to be any kind of bird.
Right.
And it's just like other things I hear people trying to tell me, like the whistles I've talked about hearing. Like, oh, it's. I was like, if it was a bird, I'd hear it all the time.
Right. See,
I've never at least once.
At least that I know of.
But like I was going to say, if it's a bird, if it was around here, I'd be hearing it semi-regularly. Maybe not every day, but when you only hear it once every few weeks or every few months, that ain't a bird. I don't believe there's a bird that comes around my house every few months or every few weeks, makes a couple calls to freak me out, and then leaves.
Right, and then leaves. That's like the one I said, my cousin and I, heard in 91 that everybody's like, well, maybe it was a peacock. And I'm like, no, I've heard a peacock. This was not a peacock. Well, maybe it was a big cat. No, I've heard a big cat. I know what they sound like. I could say it sounded like a cross between, but it sounded human at the same time. It was a distinct screaming, screeching, weird sound, like somebody was in trouble.
Yeah, they definitely make, and I'm like you, I've heard bobcats scream. And yes, a bobcat can sound just like a woman being murdered.
Yep.
And foxes can make some really weird noises.
Well, I had a fox scare me at work probably 3 years ago, and it was right behind me, and I didn't know it when I was taking out some trash, and that thing screamed. You could see the color leave me because I'd never heard a fox out, howl. I've heard videos, but I wasn't expecting it to be behind me and holler like this. It would send chills down your spine when they do that, when you're not expecting it.
I work at a pizza place nearby. We had a city slicker for a manager. We was out back and the river ran right behind the store.
Uh-oh.
And we hear him say, that's a cute little baby fox coming up the bank. And another guy looks, what is he talking about? We was out the smoke break area, I look over and it's the biggest, ugliest possum you've ever seen. And I mean, this manager guy, he's about ready to stick his nose down to it. My buddy's like, should we tell him? I was like, oh no, let nature take its course.
Let nature take its course.
And he finally backed off of it. I thought he's going to stick his face down there, and that possum's going to jump directly on his head. They're probably both going to end up in the river.
And you wasn't taking video?
That's all I could think of. Really wish I had a camera right now, because America's Funniest Home Videos, I'd be a rich man.
Right.
I couldn't believe it. He thought it was a fox. He had that little knowledge of basic wildlife, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I don't claim to be Daniel Boone. I always tell people I'm not one of the guys that Lewis and Clark stopped to ask directions on their way through. But I know my basic farm and woodland animals when I see them.
There was a law.
The fact that he didn't know the difference between a fox and a possum just amazed me.
there was a lawyer that come down here to deer hunt from Chicago, and I'm not kidding. He pulled up to the station to check your deer in with a cow on the hood of his car. He thought it was deer. That's the truth. Not even kidding. I'm like,
Well,
how
you
do
see
you
these
not know what a
videos.
cow is?
Well, you see these videos all the time, or pictures on Facebook all the time. Found the cutest dog or cat, and it'll be a coyote or a
Right,
mountain lion or a bobcat. And you wonder, are they being serious? Do they really not realize what they got in the back seat of their car?
right, right. But this guy
We've
literally
had,
had a cow on the hood of his car, took it to the check station. I'm like, how do you not know what a cow is?
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
don't
there's some people that they don't understand that food down at the grocery store comes from somewhere.
right,
Stop hunting, stop killing livestock. Just go to the grocery like everybody else. Where do you think the grocery store gets it?
right.
But to tie this all into Sasquatch, one of my pet peeves is the most common thing. Oh, you saw a bear. Everybody above the age of 10 in the modern age has seen a bear. If not in person, on TV, in the zoo, we've seen bears, and we know what a bear looks like. Well, I don't care if you've never spent a day in the woods in your life. You've seen a bear somewhere on TV or something.
Right.
9 out of 10 people over the age of 10 know what a bear looks like. And when they describe a Sasquatch, it doesn't even really sound like a bear. But
No,
you'll have these officials and experts come out, oh, you saw a bear. No, I didn't.
exactly.
And it's the same with everything else. I mean, all your cryptids, the Bigfoot, the Dogman, lake monsters, river monsters, thunderbirds,
They're all
they'll
bears.
try to pass it off as some mundane animal. It's like, I've got cable TV. I watch Nat Geo. I know what a crane looks like.
Right.
Uh, that just some of the explanations they come up. I almost easier to believe I saw a Bigfoot than what you think I saw. But
Right.
because, like I said, I'm in north central Kentucky. We don't really have bear up here. You have a rare occasional one that wanders this way somehow, but it ain't like you see bear every day like you do in eastern or western Kentucky.
Right.
And somebody sees a Sasquatch report up here. Oh, it's got to be a bear. Well, why does it got to be a bear? Do we have a sudden influx that nobody told me about? I mean,
Well, it's because
and we
Bigfoot
had one
doesn't
lady
exist
here
here, right?
recently reported seeing a bear, and she was the only person ever reported seeing it in the area. I was like, well, you know what? Every time somebody sees a Bigfoot, they swear it's a bear. Maybe she saw a Bigfoot and thought it was a bear.
Could be. Her mind
And
didn't
everybody's
want
like,
her to
oh
see what
no.
she's really seeing.
Yeah. Because like I told him, I was like, well, if it was a bear, where did this bear go that nobody else ever saw it? All the hunters around here never found any signs of it, nothing on game cams. Where did the bear go?
Right.
And which you could ask the same question a lot of time about the Sasquatch, but where did it go? But
Well, I
it
don't.
amazes me.
I can't answer any questions about that. When one runs between me and is just gone, where did it go?
Well, I can't answer the questions like I tell people. I'm not an expert. I don't even consider myself a researcher.
Right.
You might call me an investigator or an enthusiast or a student. And I tell people, and
There's no
I'll
experts.
make people mad. What's that?
I said there's no experts.
I make people mad all the time saying that. There are no experts in this field. You can't be an expert in something that isn't proven to be real
That's right.
yet. And I've
I mean, I
I've
know
had
that
some
I've
pretty
seen
heated
one.
arguments over
Right.
that.
Right. I mean, I know it's real only because I've seen one. Otherwise, if it wouldn't have been for that personal experience, even the picture I showed you is not proof. Even seeing that at the museum, it's not proof. But my personal encounter was my proof. Can I prove it to you? No. So anybody that's an expert, well, then show me the proof.
And there
Otherwise,
is some
you're
good
no
proof
better
out
than
there.
I am.
What you or I would probably consider good proof, but the scientific world won't take it. Because like you talk about, you're being in film and stuff, you know more than the average Joe about special effects, costumes, and all that.
Mhm.
And people try to say Patty was a man in a costume.
How come they can't reproduce it?
Well, that's my question. I've always said the only way you ever convince me, show me the costume,
Mm-hmm.
show me the person in the costume,
Mm-hmm.
prove that that costume existed in the year time period the film was taken. Go back out to Bluff Creek, reshoot the video with that person, that costume on the same stock film that
Right.
Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin shot it on, and reproduce it. That's the
Right.
only way anybody's ever going to convince me that was a person in a costume.
I don't believe it was a person in a costume.
I don't either.
These cameras on our telephones are better today than what they used to get that footage on, and nobody can take a clear photo of one today. Come on. These blurry photos are not evidence. I'm sorry. There's no excuse not to have a clear photo. Now, I'm not saying they don't exist. Could it be supernatural that something's affecting the digital equipment to blur it up? Yeah, it could. I don't believe it is. In fact, actually, the only thing that will really show interference on a digital camera, on a phone, or an actual, like, say, your Black Magic or a Canon or anything like that, is a planned radio frequency that you push a button on to cause it to do that at that exact time.
So unless Bigfoot's running around with a walkie-talkie,
right, unless it's supernatural, of course. But right. There's no.
I did not know that. I've learned something today. I did not realize that was the only thing that would interfere with a camera, a modern camera.
Right. There is no reason now, unless they are using a digital zoom. A digital zoom can mess up the photo too, because it's not an actual optical.
It's real pixelated.
Right. It's not true zoom. But any of these things you see, sorry, that you see out there most of the time is either pareidolia or it's an altered photo. When you see photos, when you zoom in on a photo and it looks like there's square blocks, and I don't mean like the little pixel blocks, that'll happen with a digital zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you see complete, like, big squares, it's almost like a window pane inside that square.
Yeah.
A raised window pane. You can tell that's a photo, that's been photoshopped in some way. Or if it's blurry and it's only blurry in the section where the creature's at, it's not real. I don't care. I can't. I told my wife, I said, oh my God, if I did not have morals and I could lie and fraud stuff without it messing with my own head, I could be so rich, because these people out there will believe anything, and they need to stop it. They know how technology works. They're not dumb to technology, but they'll let something like pareidolia, or if you have to circle something in a picture to see it, I almost guarantee you there's something
there. That's pretty much, I think the, whatever you want to call it, research world or community or whatever, is slowly coming around to that. If you have to circle it, I don't see it.
It's not there.
And I'm not bashing anybody. They see something I don't. I had people see things in my own pictures that I didn't see and circle it for me.
Exactly.
Because I'm the opposite of you. I've always told people.
Pareidolia.
Yeah, I've always told people, if I was faking it, it'd be real obvious. No more technically savvy than I am. It would be upside down, backward, sideways. It would be real obvious.
Yeah. If you can't tell me you've seen it in person, and of course I've had people try to tell me they did, and I'm like, no, you didn't. That's edited. No, it didn't. No, that's pareidolia. You can just tell. I mean, I usually, people have me check out stuff. I'll throw it on software, like my editing software, and I'll check it out. And I don't go by metadata. I just go by what I'm used to seeing and what I know to look for. And half the time they're seeing shadows of leaves or actual leaves forming something else that it's not. And they get upset because I'm not telling them what they want to hear. Now, I'm not out to debunk everything. If I can't answer it, I'm not going to say it's fake if I can't say it, if I don't know what it is. And, or vice versa.
Well, that's one of my catchphrases. This whole community needs to learn it's okay to say, I don't know.
That's right.
That's something you don't hear very often. People will dance on all four sides of it, do backflips over it before they say it. And not everybody. There's some good ones out there, but the ones, and usually it's the so-called experts that will not admit when they don't know something.
There's one group out there, I won't name names, but they believe every single thing on the face of the earth that is fiction is real. And I'm like, I don't understand. And they're passing around one where it's a rat prop from a Halloween store that they're trying to say is a chupacabra. And it went around about 5 years ago. I actually almost bought one of these rats until I found it was like $175 at the store because it was the same exact rat. And it's a big old rat, but they have it up on a fence. And everybody's like, oh, is it a dog? Is it a cat? No, I think it's a chupacabra. I'm like, it's a Halloween store prop. And everything is real. There is no doubt. Everything is real anymore. There's nothing is fake. Nothing is a fraud. Nothing is fake. Nothing is edited.
If I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. With everything coming back in style, I can't wait for common sense to make a comeback.
I don't think that's one will.
We can hope and pray it will, though.
It should have already circled back around if you followed.
It should have. Like I said, I can hope and pray. And I'm not bashing anybody. Like I tell people,
no.
I'll tell you what I think. I'll tell you my opinion. I won't tell you what you think. I won't give you your opinion.
Right.
And some people get mad. Well, the only reason you say is that because you don't agree with me. Well, it's okay not to agree with one another.
Absolutely.
If they believe in werewolves and dogman and flying purple people eaters, doesn't necessarily mean I have to.
Well, if people want me to check out a people want me to check out something from and then not like the answer I give them, I'm like, hey, it wasn't your photo. You wanted me to check it out for you. I gave you what I found out. You don't have to believe what I found out, but you don't have to get mad because of the answer I give you.
I've just got the point I won't argue with people anymore. There's only so many hours in a day, and I'm not going to waste one of them arguing with somebody.
I think people want to see things or want things to be real so bad, but that's the problem.
Yeah. Now, I made the comment recently, you talk about what people want to hear, and of course, one of the big controversies is Dr. Mitchem and her research and findings. I said, I think she found some truth, but it wasn't the truth that a lot of the Bigfoot community and the scientific world wanted to hear. Because before she made her release and her findings and her take on it, she was as respected as anybody. Once she released it, they dogpiled on her. I mean, I hate to compare it to this, but it was like a pack of hyenas going after a wounded zebra.
Right.
I was like, I can only imagine one reason why they do that. They didn't like what she told them. And like it comes down to what you said. Some people want the truth until they can't handle the truth. And I probably make a lot of people mad every time I say that, but that's just my take on that. She found truth, and it wasn't the truth they wanted her to find. Your audio's cut out.
I get told that I'm a skeptic, that I'm always debunking, and I'm like, no, I'm not a skeptic. I absolutely believe in Sasquatch because of my own personal encounter. But I also know when something's not real or not, when I'm looking at it. These TV shows that these people are so, well, I don't know why they haven't found anything yet, or they're this and they're that. And I'm like, no, they're purely entertainment. A lot of those people, they don't realize, are paid actors. They are scripted television shows. A lot of people don't realize that. And then I also, I told one person, they haven't reasons. One, if they did, it would be all over the place. It wouldn't wait until the next episode to show it. And two, if they did find something, the show would be over. And the show's about making money and ratings. It's business. All these shows
Mm.
on Travel Channel. Now, that's not to say some of the people that started out in it were honest to God researchers and real. But eventually, making a living took over. And now they belong to the producers and the people that own the shows, not the show.
I take up for Cliff and Bobo. I've met them from Finding Bigfoot. You
Right?
never meet two nicer guys in real life.
Right.
Same way with the mountain monster guys. I met all of them, but Trapper, because of his health conditions, he wasn't at the
Right.
convention.
Right.
They're the nicest guys on earth.
Right.
And a lot of them, especially the mountain monster guys, they know their stuff out in the woods. I mean,
Oh, they
they're
know it.
country boys. They grew up in the woods. They know how to. And just like Cliff and Bobo, I believe they're legitimate believers or knowers in Bigfoot.
Oh, they
And
are.
like you
Bobo
said,
is a believer, but the show's
yeah,
different.
yeah, but
The
when
show's
it
are.
comes to the TV show, you got to remember they got executives and producers and
Exactly.
directors and everybody else with their fingers in the pie. Well, we need a little bit
Exactly.
of this, a little bit of that. They can't. I mean, I believe if you made a show with just Cliff and Bobo, it'd be completely different than what you see on Finding Bigfoot if
Right.
they had creative control.
Right. And that's the key word, creative control.
Yeah.
That's like ghost adventures. When they started out, they were real. That they
Mm-hmm.
were doing what they did. That's what they did. I have a friend that works on the show, and I also know people, local haunts that have totally been they say certain things. I'm like, well, that's not the history of your place. No, it's not the history of your place. Why are you saying that's the history? That's not real. Or I had another friend that was on a show, and I'm like, why are you saying something that you've completely contradicted yourself on your own podcast and your own? Now you're on TV saying something completely different. Well, because they paid us to say it.
Mm-hmm.
People are sellouts. you know,
Yeah.
that's what I told my wife. If I wanted to lie, I could make so much money because I can write
Well,
stories.
and another aspect I think of it is why the guys on TV get so much hate is because they're on TV. They
Well, you
made it
bet.
big. They
Oh
were
yeah,
successful. And I hate to say it, but
that's
you got
part of
people
it.
in the world. He's got a TV show. I don't got a TV show. What you know? Jealousy.
People don't get how it works.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say it, but some of it's just flat jealousy. They got a TV show and I didn't. Why didn't they give me a TV show? Now I understand why I don't have a TV show.
Right. And I'm not knocking the TV
No,
shows, but I'm just saying,
just
the
take them with
ones
a grain of salt.
right, the ones that come at me with that evidence or something like that, I'm like, now hold on. And that's
Mm,
where I say you have to understand. I'm not saying everything on the show is real, and I'm not saying everything on the show is fake. I'm saying the show is about making money and ratings, and it's scripted.
yeah.
So, like you said, take it with a grain of salt.
And like I said, a lot of time that ain't up to the guys that are in the show. That's behind the
Right.
scenes, way above their
Absolutely.
pay grade, making those decisions.
Absolutely. It's not, it's none of those guys on the show make the calls. It's the
Yeah.
money that's backing the show that's making the calls.
That's why a lot of your shows, you get your travel channel, you notice they're all going to the streaming service now because it's cheaper to make a show on streaming than it is on live TV. And I
Yeah,
don't know a thing about making TV shows, but I can figure
right.
that out.
I've seen a lot of people complaining about that. I actually have Discovery Plus.
Mhm.
It's very cheap for the price. $6.99, no commercials. All the shows that you want are there.
Oh, with the no
People,
commercial part, you had me. You had me with no commercials.
right,
Unfortunately, where I live in the sticks, streaming's not that much of an option for me.
right. Well, people are complaining. Well, they're taking it away from. No, no, no. They're not understanding the Discovery. From what, unless they change it, which there's no doubts they probably will. Money talks. But from what my understanding is the shows that are on cable are going to remain on. Most of them are going to remain on cable. They're going to premiere on Discovery Plus first. Then they will be shown on cable, kind of like repeats.
Uh-huh.
reruns.
That's what I kind of figured.
Some shows they are pulling off, and then some shows are going to be exclusively on Discovery Plus. So people are thinking that they're pulling everything away from cable, and Travel Channel ain't going to have their shows, and ID is not going to have their shows, and all that. And I'm like, no, as of right now, that's not what's happening.
You'll just probably get the new episodes a month or so down the road after it's streaming.
Right. I'd say it's probably weeks, but right. That's the gist of it at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, but they can always change that. And in the long run, honestly, they probably will. But as of right now, they're not taking anything away from anybody that I know of. I haven't seen it yet. So, but I don't.
Like I said, if I could afford it and I could get decent streaming service out here, the no commercials alone would be worth it for me. I don't know if it's an age thing or what. I'm getting to the point I can't stand commercials.
The lineup that they have all the shows are available. Just about everything that's been on there with Finding Bigfoot, Expedition Bigfoot, Ghost Adventure, all those kind of shows are all there, and a lot of them are there from the very first season until now. Like say Ghost Adventures, if you believe in that, I had a heck of a time. When I got involved in film and my wife's seen things herself, she gets upset now because she knows they're not real on Ghost Adventures, and it upsets her so bad because she loved that show. But
Ghost Adventures, that's
like
Zach and
24
history,
seasons
right?
on that. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's like 24 seasons available all at once right there on it. Just boom right there. And they
the only problem I ever had with them is when they get on there doing the tough guy routine. Are you here? Come on out. Face us. What are you going to do? It's a ghost. You cannot punch a ghost. What are you going to do if it does show up?
Right. Yeah, that's the one my wife had a hard time, because I'm like, honey, it's scripted. So and so works there, and but
now I always tell people it's not that I don't believe in the supernatural. If anything, I probably believe in it a little bit too much, and that's why I leave it alone.
Right.
That's like I don't have any. I've had one what I can confirm, no doubt in my mind. I saw a ghost once.
Right.
And like I tell everybody, I'd say if we really stop and think about it, we've all seen UFOs.
Oh yeah.
Unidentified flying objects. By the literal definition, I've seen at least one.
I've seen at least one.
I'm not saying it's a spaceship from Mars.
Right. I get what
it
you're
was
saying.
Unidentified, it was flying, and I assume it was some kind of object. Therefore, UFO.
Right. No, I believe in ghosts. I've seen things, I have stories. That was my main thing. Bigfoot was never my main thing. It was always more the paranormal and ghost thing. But in my mind, Bigfoot falls in the same category to me because he's not normal compared to the normal world. So that's paranormal. It's not normal.
I do kind of on the fence about Bigfoot. Whether right. I know Jeremiah Fountain and his group have got a term I really like, paranatural. It's not necessarily supernatural or paranormal. Paranatural. It could be Bigfoot could be as flesh and blood as you or I.
Oh, I believe
it. Just have abilities that we don't understand yet. Right. And that's where I'm leaning right now.
I believe it's flesh and blood without any doubts because of the one that ran between us. Mm-hmm. Now, my dad had made a statement about Bigfoot years ago, and I was a kid then, and I was like, what? And he said, well, what if it's interdimensional? I'm like, are you serious? And I was just a child. And he's like, well, really? He said, 1 minute they're here, 1 minute they're gone. And later on, after having the experience and encounter that my cousin and I had, to where when we turned around, it was just gone. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't think about it till later. I'm like, well, Dad said, what if? Is that possible? I don't know. I don't know. They're saying now
Anything's possible.
that time travel, they've proven, that it's a possibility. The mathematics have been worked out. I read an article not too long ago, and I'm like, and the Navy's supposed to have something, and I'm like, well, of course the Navy has something. Hello, the Philadelphia experiment. That wasn't fake. That was real. So, do you think they just stopped? If they made that ship do what it did and all that bad stuff happened, do you think they just stopped researching it? Oh, this
Oh,
happened. Oh no, this is bad. We're just going to stop studying it. No,
our government and
no,
military doesn't stop anything because it's bad.
exactly,
If anything, it picks up
exactly,
steam when they find out it's bad.
right,
However
right.
bad it is, they'll see how much worse they can make it. But
I don't have an explanation for the thing disappearing when we turn around. I can't say it was a time slip or interdimensional or cloaking or it just stood still and we didn't see it. I mean, it could have been anything.
yeah,
It could have legitimately just froze in place and was dark enough that we didn't see it.
that's kind of the way I lean. I think that nine out of everybody calls it the woo. I mean, that's just the
Yeah.
term everybody's tacked to it. And I'm
I don't
not
believe in the
bashing
way.
anybody that believes it or anything,
Right.
but I believe that 99.5% of the unexplained, if you apply a little bit of common sense and just think it out, there
Right.
are explanations. Several of them sometimes. I could be right, I could be wrong.
I can't explain the one footprint
I've
thing.
had I've had situations I can't either, really. Other than the only thing I could think, I tried to stretch my stride out as best I could before I found that one print. And it took me three strides stretching for all I was worth to get from where it was at to the little lane and a half road that runs past my property to the other side of the ditch. Now, something that's 8, 10 foot tall, its next step might have been in the middle of the road. Its next step might have been up the bank on the other side.
Right.
So that could be why I'm not finding prints anywhere nearby.
You had a ghost.
Yeah, I heard something thump. I tell you what, when you get after you had the house slapped a few times, everything, when you hear a thump, you got your head on. So what was that?
Right.
Every little noise, you're just like, okay, here we go. She said something when she went around the corner there. I couldn't make her out. Uh, but like I said, about 95% of it act like the cloaking. Well, they found translucent hair that's clear in sunlight
Why don't they
that would
take
blend.
DNA?
What's that?
Then why don't they take DNA on it?
Well, some people claim to have. I mean, you know how it is. The further down the rabbit hole you go, it ain't got
Right.
no bottom. But that's just one explanation. Translucent hairs, and some animals are such keen camouflagers. Like I told people, I've almost stepped on deers before I saw them
Oh
bedded
yeah.
down.
Right.
And as far as speed stuff, you got animals like the cheetah that can run 60 miles an hour for short distances. Who said Sasquatch can't break 70 in a sprint?
I thought cheetahs ran 80.
It may be 80. I know they do at least 60.
Right.
Either way, they can keep up with a moving car, which people have reported Sasquatch running alongside their car 45, 50 mile an hour.
Right.
Well, if I was 10 foot tall and had a 6 or 7 foot stride, I could probably keep up with a car for a little while anyway myself.
Right.
We know that was you made the thump. He told me I had a ghost. I told him anymore every time something thumps or bumps, I jump out of my hide. But yeah, Littlefoot, I know. Uh, and of course, I've looked into big time the Native American traditions and history in the subject. And they kind of course, Native Americans do this with everything. They kind of blended the natural world and the spirit or supernatural. We're in modern society where you think they're this far apart. The Native Americans, they were side by side.
Right.
They almost walk with one foot in the real world. Real world ain't really the best word for it, but
I know what
one foot in this world and one foot in the spirit world, or whatever you want to call it. Because my grandfather was half Apache Indian, and he had some abilities that modern medicine can't explain.
Right. My family's Cherokee, and my great grandmother was full blooded Cherokee, and it's the same thing. They could do things that you're like, okay, the modern medicine thing and just stuff like that that they can't even do today.
And that ties back into the other aspect. I'm sure you've watched anything I post or the biblical connection with the Nephilim and the hybrids and the troglodytes. And I tell people, if you think back to biblical times, I say this, I know people will get tired of hearing it every episode, but I get your take on it. Noah, Moses, Methuselah, Adam, they all lived 6, 7, 8, up to around 1,000 years. Modern man doesn't do that. So
Yeah,
I think genetically they had something that we don't.
either that, there's that, but there's also the atmosphere was different when they were there. It was before the flood.
There was another researcher said basically the same thing. They lived a lot cleaner lives.
Right.
Atmosphere, lifestyle, everything. And then it could have been
the
completely divine intervention. They lived that long too, but
divine intervention or a different calendar. Their time frame might not have been like ours. But
I say that all the time. To an eternal being like God, everybody talks about the end times and all that.
Right.
Yes, I believe Jesus will come back, but I don't know what soon means to God, because time doesn't mean anything to God. So what is soon?
I have one for you. We're talking about where things come from and stuff, and you have Adam and Eve and their children and all that. You have Cain and Abel, and Cain was banished, right, and told to find a wife in the land of Nod. Okay. Now, if Adam and Eve were the only people on the planet and their children, who's he marrying in the land of Nod?
Well, that ties in not to the land of Nod, but always one of my little catchphrases. When God created the world in 7 days, whatever 7 days is, or 6 days to God, he created the whole world, not just the Middle East where the Bible takes place. Right. North America was here too at the same time. It wasn't a suburb that he added, finished on day 42 or whatever. So while all that was going on over there, something was going on over here. And I think, like I said, I think even a lot of Christians have trouble wrapping their head around the fact he created the whole world and not just the biblical area. Because all that's in the Bible is what took place there. Right. Like you said, the land of Nod, there was apparently people there if Cain went off and found him a wife there.
Right, but Adam and Eve was supposed to be the first people created.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we don't know that. We don't know.
Well, we don't know that. We can theorize.
We don't know anything until later.
Yeah. That's why I tell everybody the only way any of us are ever going to know who's right and who's wrong when we get there, when you're either come the final judgment day for everybody or your own personal judgment day, when you're looking the man eye to eye, you'll find out if you're right or wrong.
Right.
And that goes back to my whole I don't argue religion either.
Right.
It ain't worth it.
No, it's not. It's just as bad as politics.
Yeah.
And we won't even go
stay
there.
Completely out of that one. I just
right.
I've never been.
There's enough.
And even if you try to stay out of it, it won't leave you alone because everybody's like, "Oh, did you see this? Did you hear that?" Yeah. What do you think about? I try not to.
Or you'll say something in the Trump. What? No, I didn't. I was talking about Bigfoot. What?
Yeah. Well, that was like my last episode. I said something about zoos. I stopped a second. I thought, oh, God, that sounded like Jews. I don't have anything against Jews. I said zoos.
I hear you.
Yeah, because you know how people are. If they could find a wrong way to take something you say,
it's the trend today.
Yeah.
They'll probably find something in this podcast tonight from me.
Like I've told them, I'm sure there's people that are upset that I woke up this morning. That's all I had to do to upset them was open my eyes.
I hear you.
So, a couple questions I always ask everybody before we wrap up here.
All right.
Just your opinion, just like mine. Nobody's right or wrong. If you have to lean to one side or the other, what do you think Sasquatch is? If you had to lean towards something,
I think Sasquatch is flesh and blood and a very good hider. I think my opinion has always been that he is just very good at keeping concealed, and they are some form of primitive man.
it's entirely possible. I can't argue with any of that.
That's just still here. I don't think they're an ape. I'm not going to say they're not related because we're related according to science. So, I don't know.
My biggest problem with the ape thing is if it was just a dumb ape or a gorilla, or not a dumb ape. Apes or gorillas are fairly intelligent for apes and gorillas. But if it was just an ape or a gorilla, we'd have one by now.
Right.
We've got apes and gorillas in the zoos. Why wouldn't we have a Sasquatch right next to them?
Exactly.
There's got to be.
And I've often wondered, all those caves that run like in Kentucky and Missouri and Illinois, probably everywhere across the country. How do we know that some of them aren't? But then again, there's the whole fur thing. They probably wouldn't have all that fur if they lived in the caves. And I don't know. I really don't know how.
I've thought about the cave and tunnel theory that they're at least partially subterranean.
Right.
Yeah, they live in the suburbs.
Suburban.
That would explain
That's
a
why we're
whole
not
lot.
finding them. We're mixing in now.
Nobody looks in the suburbs.
Right.
Wow.
Nothing's normal now. They're just fitting in.
Yeah. And I have seen a couple guys walking down the street that would almost make you believe in evolution and Neanderthals because their knuckles were almost scraping the concrete. But I know I've considered the whole subterranean thing, and it makes a lot of common sense as far as them using them for travel and transportation. Because I believe they're nomadic. They'll stay in one area for a while. They don't necessarily migrate, but they'll just meander 100 miles over this direction where the fishing's better or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
And then when they kind of wore the food supply down in that area, they either wander somewhere else or they'll wander back over here.
Sometimes these structures that you'll see a lot of researchers put up, I sit and look at them, and they're like, and I'm not saying they're not structures. Somebody built them, something built them, whatever. But I'm just looking at them going, but it's not keeping the rain out. Why would they? Why? What? Those things don't look like anything. Why would they build that and say that's where they're nesting, and it's not keeping any rain out? What is it doing? I mean,
well, one thing I've considered here in Kentucky, I'm sure Illinois is probably the same as far as shelters. I can't throw a rock without hitting an abandoned house or an abandoned barn,
right? That's
or some kind of shed. Or
why would
you have to build a teepee?
Or a cave? Right?
Yeah, when you got shelter right there, and I believe they're the ultimate opportunists. If they've got a convenient, ready-made shelter, they're not going to build their own. They'll shack up in an old abandoned barn or a cave or a mine or whatever.
And this is just me, but within the last, say, 10, even go back 20 years, how often did you hear anything about a shelter or see any of that in any books, in any videos, in anything? Did you hear a discussion of those structures?
I've only found one thing here on the property that I've actually managed to convince myself that could be. I call it the archway. I put pictures of it up before, and it's two trees over a water break, and they're tied together at the top.
Right. And now see, that could be markers, and they could be doing that. But I'm talking about these really exquisite structures that you see made. I'm like, why? It looks like they've taken trees and made them into a teepee with no canvas and all these different other kinds.
What I find interesting, I don't know if you follow him, but Hal Lane and a few others, the asterisks they'll find where all these logs have been shoved together, trees, to form
Right.
what looks like a star or an asterisk. There's two possibilities there: human or Sasquatch. Something
Right.
with opposable thumbs.
Right.
Raccoons didn't do it. The deer didn't do it. There's really only two suspects,
Right.
and I
When it
lean
when
towards
it has
Sasquatch.
actual form to it. Now there's others that I've seen that, and I'm like, I used to walk the woods when I was a kid, and I'm like, trees fall that way sometimes, but not like the asterisk or something like that. When you can tell there was effort put into it forming a certain thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And that's
I
just
have
like they don't usually trees don't usually fall to form a almost perfect X
right.
shoved into
Now,
the
I've
ground
seen
on
them
both
do it.
ends.
I've seen them
Oh,
do
they
it.
can do it. It don't do it
Right.
often though.
Right. Exactly. I
That's like one well-known researcher explained my archway as cyclotronic wind, which I don't even know if that's a real thing or not. But it came down, tied those two trees in a knot at the top, and didn't touch anything around
I seen that happen. Not the trees in a knot, but a very small tornado set down in our neighbor's yard in the middle of one tree and wrapped that tree in circles of itself and lifted up back in the air and never touched
it.
another thing in the area anywhere at all, except that
Would
one
that
tree.
be the same thing as what he calls?
I think that's probably what he's talking about, but I don't know. That's what I
Yeah.
that's what I suppose that the guy's talking about, but I can't be for sure.
Well, I've seen what you're talking about. It's just like the trailer parks. The tornadoes come down, hit one trailer, turn it inside out, skip over this trailer, and hit the one on the other side of it. I've
Right,
seen that.
right,
Not just trees, like I said. I've seen it in houses,
right. Now this
and I've
tornado
seen
was
tornadoes
small.
drive straw through a tree just like
Yep,
nails too.
yep. Now this tornado set down in the neighbor's yard. I was in my I still lived at home and was in the garage at my mom and dad's house, and the doors slammed twice, and I was like, "What the heck?" And I walked out. I tried opening it. And I finally got it open, and it looked the one tree in our backyard looked like it was just slapping the ground. I was like, "What the heck?" Because this tree shouldn't have been slapping anything. If anything, it should have snapped in two. It was so big.
Mm.
And but the tornado, our neighbor sat in his kitchen and watched the tornado come right down in the middle of a little apple tree in his backyard. He said it was like right into that tree, come down, and then went right back up into the air and just completely twisted that tree to, didn't destroy the tree, didn't break the tree, just twisted it all within itself. And you would have thought it would have been shredded and broken and everything, but it was all just twisted into. It shouldn't have looked like it looked. But
Yeah.
so maybe that's what he's talking about. I don't know,
Could
but
be.
that's not. Still, that's going to be random here and there. It's not going to be all the time everywhere.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
that's what so much of this comes down to. Like you said, they Sasquatch been spotted in 49 out of 50 states. I think Hawaii's the only one that doesn't have official sightings, and 6 out of 7 continents. And all the evidence right along with them, the tree structures, footprints, howls.
right,
It's a worldwide phenomenon. If we
right,
saw them just in Kentucky, then you could tell us to lay off the moonshine. But
right. Those Kentucky
when they're seeing
goblins.
them in Russia, that's about as far from Kentucky as you can get. And I've noticed, if you watch videos and documentaries and stuff, other world governments seem to be a lot more open about this and take it more seriously than our government, at least publicly, does. Like the Russian government, they actually do studies about it. They'll admit we're searching for Bigfoot
I think that
or whatever it is the Alma or something like that.
if this museum, if that guy would have had this Bigfoot in today's time, I don't think things were just a different world back then. I don't think they would have walked in and said, we'll be back. I think they would have already had a
Yeah.
warrant of some kind in their hands or just took it. They wouldn't care that
Mm.
you took it. So, but still don't know where this thing's at. His kids haven't said a word. It's just,
The world may never know.
no.
Well, next usual question I ask each guest, you probably already answered this one with that one account you gave. Other than Bigfoot, what's the strangest thing you've ever seen or encountered? Or
The strangest thing, I don't know. I guess the creepiest thing probably would have been that flesh and blood wolf-like creature, like you said. Otherwise, it would have been something paranormal. One night, a lot of paranormal stuff that is very, very unexplainable. There was a house my family had back in the 60s and 70s that it was haunted. It was just haunted. There's no way to say it wasn't haunted. And there was just some things we've seen that you can't explain. I can't pick one. I
yeah,
can't pick
that's
one.
fine.
And if it's flesh and blood, I'll say that thing that was stalking the deer minus the encounter I had with the Sasquatch.
All right.
Otherwise,
Well,
it would be paranormal.
anything else you want to add, or any questions you want to ask me, or
No, I think I'm good.
was we're a little over an hour and a half? I figured if ain't
Oh
nobody
wow,
popped in by
really?
now,
Wow.
time flies when you're having fun. It's been
I
great.
guess so. I didn't think it'd been that long.
Yeah,
I got a
I've
little
had a
off
great
subject
time.
there, but
Like I said, your encounter where it ran between you and your cousin, like I said, that's by far the closest encounter I've heard. And I
right.
can't imagine. I have yet to have the class A full on face to face looking dead at it. I've had partial sightings where I see something take off through the woods and it ain't a bear, it ain't a deer, and it ain't a
Well, you should
person.
chase it.
What's that?
I said, then you should chase it.
I like to think that's where my common sense kicks in because whatever it was a lot bigger than me.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
you
like
could
to go
join
into
that.
my encounters when I have a guest because I bring you
You
on
could,
here to hear your stuff.
but you could always join that club of that we was talking about, the lack of common sense. And
That's, that's one club I'll steer clear of.
I hear you.
I may not have any letters behind my name or technical expertise, but I can at least say I've got a little bit of common sense.
Hey, that
Not
goes a
to
long
chase
way.
something 2 or 3 times my size through the woods.
Hey, I know teachers that I think had to turn in their common sense when they got their teaching degree.
You know,
So, yeah.
sometimes those letters behind their names go straight to their heads.
Yep.
Because then, and I've said this about the whole Sasquatch thing. I've read a book called Bigfoot Nation. I haven't finished it, but it's got a lot of newspaper reports and stuff from the 1800s right up to modern times. And I noticed back in the 1800s, up to about the 70s or 80s, there was a lot more Bigfoot related stuff reported in local newspapers. People seem to take it a little bit more, I'm not going to say
Serious.
commonplace or everyday, but serious. If they was more accepting of, whereas now I can't remember the last time I saw a Bigfoot encounter in a local newspaper or on the local news. Maybe right around Halloween, something like that.
1979, Poplar Bluff newspaper ran an article. I think it was about this Sasquatch. And then there was the Momo, and then what was it, the folk monster in Arkansas. I think they were all in the Poplar Bluff newspaper too, but it was the 70s.
70s, early 80s. About
Yep.
what I was leading up to with that is the modern age. We think we've got everything all figured out. There
Not at all.
can't be a large bipedal creature running around North America that we ain't discovered yet. Well, I hate to tell people you're going to find out there's a whole lot in this world that we ain't figured out.
That's right.
And some of it maybe we're not meant, maybe God doesn't want us to know. Maybe we're not meant to figure it out. Maybe we never will. That won't
Right.
keep me from trying.
Right.
I've always said I won't let the fact I don't know what I'm doing stop me.
Well, you don't know what you're doing until you go out and do it and learn.
Yeah.
It's the best teacher.
Yeah. But like I said, from reading that book, I realized the further back you go, the more matter of fact, for lack of a better term, people took these things. And
Right.
there was one where they captured this creature and brought it back to the Smithsonian in chains. supposedly, and put it on display. And of course, we've all heard the conspiracy theories about the red-haired giants and the bones were sent to the Smithsonian and disappeared and all. But
Right.
this newspaper article, and I'm talking these newspaper articles, would be front page. Today, if you get a Bigfoot report, it's going to be on page 8, somewhere between the obituaries and the funnies or something.
Right.
Or the horoscope, next to the horoscope. It ain't going to be front page.
Is that in the book you're reading now, Bigfoot Nation?
Bigfoot Nation is by, I don't know how well you can see that.
All right.
There's David Hatcher Childress. I believe he's the same guy that wrote about the Lubbock Caves and the red-haired giants and the mound builders and all that.
And that has the newspaper articles in it that you were talking about?
Yeah.
All right. That's interesting.
It's got several.
The way I've always looked at it, so is you take the Native American legends or the French with the werewolves or even the vampires, okay? These legends had to be caused for a reason. They had to be, were they stories to make children mind? Maybe. But in the long run, like with the werewolves, it was something existed somewhere that was scaring people enough to form these superstitions or beliefs. Now, whether those exist today, who knows? Are they an extinct, and I'm speaking of werewolves right now. Are they an extinct creature that caused these beliefs that is not here now? No. Is it bad rice that caused mass hallucinations? Who knows? But I've always been from the belief that something caused these legends, whether it was Bigfoot, werewolf, Loch Ness, something.
There's a
believe these things.
Famous quote, and I can't for the life of me right now think of who said this, but all legends and myths have a basis in reality.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And like I said, I can't give credit to whoever it was. Now I know one of my other favorite quotes was Arthur C. Clarke, who said, any technology more significantly advanced than the current civilization would be viewed as if magic.
Yes, exactly.
That's what always been what people talk about, and I think the big thing they got on that was King Arthur and Merlin and all that. Well, Merlin was probably an alchemist, whoever the real Merlin was. He wasn't waving a magic wand and turning people into frogs or nothing, but he was probably performing alchemy and chemistry.
Right.
And that was far enough advanced and different from what everybody else was doing back then. They thought he was a wizard. It would be the same thing if aliens landed tomorrow. If they've got light speed technology like in Star Trek and laser beams and handheld laser beams and stuff, who's to say they wouldn't have technology that would just blow our minds, would be like magic to us?
Right.
It might look like they're waving magic wands around because they're just doing something that we don't understand yet.
Look at the light bulb. That was magic.
Oh, yeah. That's another subject I love is Tesla. Just bringing up the light. Tesla was a man that was at least 100 and maybe 200 years ahead of his time. And Thomas Edison wouldn't have got where he is now if he hadn't stole, ripped, and robbed from Nikola Tesla. I mean, the man had Denver more or less running off electricity 50 years before Thomas Edison knew what a light bulb was.
Right.
Like I said, there's other examples. You got Da Vinci was drawing a helicopter in the 1700s. Where'd you get an idea for a helicopter? What's that?
Said it was a 1500s, wasn't
it? 1500s. I don't know. I just know it was Da Vinci. They found his sketchbooks and he had sketches of what looked like a helicopter. Now, where'd he get an idea for a helicopter? He was just ahead of his time.
Right.
So, and who knows? We always assume that Sasquatch is more primitive than us. Maybe they're ahead of us.
Yeah, they could.
Maybe they know something we don't.
Yep.
I always said, people, are they intelligent as humans? I may not be giving them enough credit. Because
a lot of people are like, well, why, if they're intelligent as humans, why would they not live in houses? Why would they not? Well, let's think
it's
about
called
that.
survival. That's what I
Right.
think about that.
Let's think about that a little bit. Exactly.
It's called survival. They're better suited and better equipped to survive on this planet with nothing but their own two hands than we are. Because
Maybe they're
like
just
me and Jeremiah Fountain was talking, everybody that thinks we're at the top of the food chain, take away our technology and watch how quick we slide down that food chain to we're at the bottom looking up. I mean, if this year has taught us nothing else, there's microbes that we can't even see that can wipe us off the face of the planet.
Right.
So don't tell me humans are at the top of the food chain.
No, I've never agreed with that. But, they try to say we're the alpha predator, we're top of the food chain. No, I think we're the worst example of an animal destroying itself. But anyway,
oh yeah,
but
we're the worst thing that ever happened to this planet.
Right, but you're right. You put us in the wilderness without our guns and weapons
and binoculars and FLIR cameras, and
are we still at the top of the food chain?
Not even close.
I think we've come closer to the bottom, don't you?
I said, well, it's just like if you throw us in the ocean. You think a great white shark looks at us and says top of the food chain?
That's right.
No, because we're in his world then.
That's right.
So saying all of a sudden you're a real little fish in a great big pond.
Yep.
But like I said, it blows my mind that people think humans are the cock of the walk or whatever you want to call it.
That's the human ego.
Yeah. And maybe that's another big difference. Who knows? Maybe Sasquatch doesn't have the ego. Maybe that's one of the big differences between us.
That could be it. He don't go to the beauticians and groom himself like some of those pictures you see out there.
Now, I have talked to witnesses that had not as close as you were, but they said they looked groomed. Their hair was, and several told me it's hair, not fur. They said it looked groomed. It was as clean as if he'd just walked out of a tailor.
Well, I don't know. I'd have to see that.
Who knows? I mean, maybe they do have that high of a level of self-hygiene, or they've got all the resources. I mean, use a pine cone for a brush. You got a pond right there to take a bath in.
Right. Never know.
You never know.
I was thinking of one specific photo when I was laughing about that, the Bigfoot beautician, but
yeah. Well, it always reminds me of that line from the old Lon Chaney. Now I will go blank. Werewolves of London. I'd like to meet his tailor.
Yeah.
Warren Zevon.
Or was that was Lon Chaney, wasn't it? The Wolfman?
He played it, but I'm talking about the song, Werewolves of London.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Lauren Zevon.
Right. Oh, Werewolves of London.
I'd like to meet his tailor.
Right.
Like I said, I've heard witnesses say they looked like they just walked out of a salon. Their hair was as neat and as clean as our clothes. Maybe it's that clean lifestyle they got. Like we was talking about, back in the biblical times, they lived in a much cleaner world. Well, maybe it's the same with Sasquatch. You live up in the woods. Like I said, you got a pond right there to jump in and take a bath. Use a pine cone for a brush. And some people have reported seeing them use primitive tools.
Right.
Which we've seen gorillas and apes and other primates do that, spear fishing and stuff like that. So who knows?
Right.
And we've gotten way off the rail with that. Somehow or another, we got talking about classic rock and beauty salon.
Okay. That's okay. Classic rock and Bigfoot, it's all good.
Yeah.
He probably listens to classic rock.
I was getting ready to say, probably 99% of the people that listen to this podcast won't know who Warren Zevon was, but
probably not.
I said
I
Kid
noticed
Rock
the
did him
older
the
I
biggest
get,
favor. What's that?
I notice the older I get now, the more people don't relate to me. They're like, "What? Who? Huh?"
I always say I'm a throwback because most of the music I listen to and what I watch on TV, what little bit I watch, is from 3 or 4 generations ago.
Right? Same here anymore.
Yeah.
There's a few newer, like I say newer. It's I don't even think it's on anymore. But I'm watching like Justified, as
Oh,
far as
I love that.
something that's not Bigfoot related. But I'm just saying
Yeah.
that's one of the newer shows that I'm watching. Otherwise, I find myself gravitating back here lately to the stuff that was on when I was a kid, stuff I watched with my grandparents, because
Oh,
today's
I watch a
TV,
lot of stuff that was on before I was born.
right? Because Andy Griffith,
Yeah.
today's TV doesn't hold my interest. It's just
There's one every now
a
and then,
lot of
like you
it's
said. I
just
love Justified. I love that show. I said that was the best cop show in probably past 20 years.
right.
Now, Mom likes the new Walker Texas Ranger with the guy from Supernatural.
See, I don't even want to watch it. I don't even want to watch it because it's
I'll
not
watch
the
it with her, and I give her a hard time all the way through it. I was like, Chuck Norris would have this guy on the ground by now.
This show would have been over the first 5 minutes.
He'll get in a fight and he'll struggle with him. I was like, one roundhouse kick solves everything.
Right. They have no originality anymore. They're bringing all the old shows back and
Oh yeah,
trying to renew them, and it doesn't work.
that's the only thing I watch right now with any regularity. Pro wrestling. That's my guilty little pleasure. I've watched it since I was a kid.
I
I still
haven't
watch it.
watched it in forever. I haven't watched it in forever. I
Well,
guess
like I
I
said,
quit watching. I quit
it's
watching
pure
wrestling
entertainment.
about the time mankind left.
Yeah, I was watching it then, and I'm still watching it. Like I said, that's my guilty little pleasure.
Right,
Just pure
right.
entertainment. I don't take it serious. I don't sit there
Well,
and get upset when my favorite guy don't win or whatever.
right, it's a male soap opera. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well, I
used to
think
watch it all the time. Um, we watch the Bigfoot shows. We watch she likes the paranormal shows just for the entertainment. She's got to where she pretty much knows that they're all full of hooey. And that it's scripted, but it's just fun. Otherwise, we watch older shows like Hill Street Blues, ER, stuff like that. We don't. There's
yeah.
nothing on it anymore. Or I'm listening to podcasts like this while
Yeah.
she's speaking.
I listen a lot. Mom gets on me all the time, tells me I'm obsessed because I'm either reading something about Bigfoot, watching something about Bigfoot, listening to something about Bigfoot,
Yeah, but
and
you
it
know what?
passes the time.
You could be doing a whole lot of worse things.
Oh yeah, that's what I tell her all the time. But is there any other cryptids you're particularly interested in? For me, it's the Thunderbirds. For some reason, Thunderbirds are my number two.
I Thunderbirds used to be my son when he was still alive. He was walking his girlfriend to a school in West Frankfort, and they were running late, and they thought it was lunchtime, and it was open campus, and they was running late getting back, and they seen a big shadow fly over them. And at the time, my son was homeschooled, so he was taking her back to school and coming back to the house. And they saw he come back telling me about it, and she verified it later, saying he's not lying, he's not lying, it was real. And they thought a low flying plane was flying overhead because of the shadow and the wingspan. And he said that they looked up, and he said, "Dad, that is the biggest bird I ever seen in my life." I said, "Well, it was probably a vulture or something like that." And he said, "No, Dad, this thing was huge, huge." He said it did have feathers. He said, but he said, I swear that his wing was 10 feet long. And he said, and if I had to say, he said, I would swear it was pterodactyl if it wasn't for the feathers. I'm like, oh, come on. Now, don't go making stuff up on me. And later on, the girlfriend, I said, "Did you see something fly over the school?" Before he had a chance to say anything to her. And she said, "He's not lying. We did see a big bird." And that's all she
Yeah.
said. They just seen a big bird, the biggest
Mhm.
bird they ever saw. So That was in 2010. No,
They,
yeah, 2010.
if I'm not mistaken, there in Illinois, up around Chicago,
Yep.
they had a recent spout of flying humanoids, Mothman,
Yeah, they had
whatever you
some
want to call it,
Mothman.
outbreaks.
Well,
Which I suppose if it was a giant bird, especially at night, it might look humanoid.
right. That how do you say it? Piazza bird, Pizza bird.
Yeah,
I don't remember how it's said.
I know
Um,
what you're talking about.
they're in Alton, Illinois. That's probably about 2 hours. Oh, not even that. Probably an hour and a half away from where we were living when that thing flew over the school.
Hmm.
But my cryptid that I'm curious about, honestly, I think would be the dog man. I've never seen one. I hear all these people talking about it. You hear all these people saying they've seen it, they have evidence, but they won't show they can't show you the evidence. Or they'll show you a circled photo of leaves. If there's one out there, that I'd like to see that. I want to see the evidence. You know what I'm saying? I have a friend on Facebook that lives close by. We heard it again, and I'm like, "Are you sure you're not hearing coyotes?" you know. He's like,
Yeah.
"No, it's a dog man. It's a dog man." Are you sure it's not a Sasquatch? No, it's a dog man. It's a dog man. I said, "Have you seen it?" No. Have your friends seen it? No. Have you seen tracks? No. What are you hearing? It's howling. Oh, okay.
Gotta
And
be a
that
dog man.
tells you it's a dog man.
Now, you was talking about the tracks. I did talk to one other researcher, and he had some witnesses that he knew personally who claimed to see a dog man. But when they went out and researched it, they found Sasquatch tracks or
Right,
Sasquatch like tracks.
right.
And
And
I've
that's
often
what I
wondered
said
that
about
about the
that
dog
intel.
man,
What's that?
misidentified Sas. I've also wondered if your dog man, at least a good portion of it, ain't misidentified Sasquatch.
Right. That area that we lived in where the hand slap was going on and I found the footprint, I would have that howl the 2 nights before, I would have never thought it would have been a Sasquatch until I found the footprint 2 days later and started getting the hand slaps on the house because the howl sounded like a wolf, just one that was entirely too big for its britches. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And so there's reports. Here's the thing: people are saying, werewolves, dogman. What's the difference? Are they trying to say that the dogman is a natural creature or a hybrid creature that is just what it is? And is it something that is human and transforms, or what? That's what I'm trying to figure out their definition between a werewolf and a dogman.
My only problem with it being a natural creature, there's no natural biological advantage to a wolf for it to get up on its hind legs. Every advantage they possess comes from being four-legged.
Right. But
There's
I have
absolutely no reason.
even on documentaries, you see a wolf get up on its hind legs for a small bit of time and walk, kinda. It's
Yeah.
more of a hop to me, or if it's trying to get something, you see it'll stand up.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I'm hearing, these people are saying that these things are standing up and running, or they're standing up and standing by their cars they drive by. Well, I've seen dogs do that on the side of the road. They'll kind of jump back and they'll be up on their hindquarters there looking as the car passes. So are they seeing a wolf that's just standing up? Or are they actually seeing a human body with a wolf's head?
Yeah.
I don't want to seem like a skeptic because people could say the same thing that about Bigfoot that I know exists because I've seen it. But because I haven't seen Dogman, I'm not knocking it, but I'm like, something just isn't jiving here. You know what
Like I
I'm
said,
saying?
yeah, I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying I'm
Right,
hope it's not real.
right. Yeah, that's
And
what I told my
that might
wife.
offend some people, but I sleep better at night thinking dogmen and werewolves aren't real.
Right. That's what I told my wife when I seen that thing cross the road. That the only way I can describe it is American Werewolf in London. Ever seen the movie? That wolf. And I said, I don't know what it was. It wasn't a cat. It wasn't a normal wolf. It wasn't a coyote. I don't know what it was. I said, but if that thing, because we was talking about dogmen the other day because of a group that believes everything. I said, if that thing would have stood up on its hind legs, they would have had to take me and the whole car to the car wash because it would have been a mess.
Well, that's me. And everybody talks about you can't outrun a Bigfoot or you can't outrun a Sasquatch or Dogman or whatever. I was like, you got to realize something. I said, I've got two top speeds. I've got my top speed, and then I've got my being chased by something top speed,
Right,
which is considerably higher than my normal top speed.
right. Let that
You may be
adrenaline
surprised what I can outrun
you're
if I'm
gonna
scared
move.
enough.
That's right. You'll move when you have to,
Yeah.
regardless of health conditions or not,
It's
whether
just
you're
like
out of shape
my
or
tree
not.
climbing days are about over. If I was being chased by a Sasquatch, I believe I might find it in me to scamper up a tree.
Well, I'll scamper up a tree if a boar's coming at me if I ain't got no protection.
Yeah.
I bet I find a way up that tree.
Oh yeah. Now, be my luck, the Bigfoot can climb trees better than I can. He'd meet me at the top, but
That's like
ask me what took so
running
long.
from running from the bear and climbing the tree.
Oh
You can climb the tree too, right?
yeah, yeah.
Whoop.
I like the old joke, the cartoon you see on the internet every now and then. Said if being chased by a bear, climb a tree, and then jump out and drop a macho man elbow on it. At least you'll die like a man.
Right. Well, you
Because I've
could do that
always
and then
said the
play
whole
dance.
pretending to be dead. If a bear's chasing, give me a few seconds. I won't have to pretend to be dead. I'll be dead.
All right.
Uh, well, as far as now, Chupacabra, that's another one I don't know what to think about. I've read a couple of Nick Ferdin's books on it, or Nick Redfern's books on it. And there's two different versions of it. There's the one in like Texas and the American Southwest. It's some kind of mangy canine.
Right.
And then there's the one out in
I
down
think
in
that's a
Central and
hell
South
of a coyote.
America. Yeah, that's what I pretty much thought of every video picture. Looks like a coyote to me. Then you go down into Central and South America, and it's a whole different ballgame. It's
Right.
some kind of reptilian,
Humanoid looking little
winged,
thing.
blood sucking, alien, demonic. I don't know what.
Right.
Now, the Loch Ness monster, I would love for it to be real, but if there's something as big as a dinosaur in that loch, shouldn't we have found it by now?
I don't know. That lock's pretty big, even with that new little like drone submarine thing they have. They can only go so deep. So I don't know. I heard that the guy that did it wasn't it a doctor that had the original photos come later and said that he faked it all. But yeah, I don't know if that's true or not.
Well,
I'd
that's
like to
just
think
like Patty. That's one picture that's fake. What about all the others?
right,
And not just Nessie. I mean, you got lake monsters right here in America, Champ and
right.
Acapulco, and there's plenty of others scattered out. Like I said, I'd love to think that there's still dinosaurs around somewhere, just like with Thunderbirds and the one down in Africa, Mikawakabambi or whatever it's called. They made the movie off of it years ago, Legend. Babe, the legend is real. It was a
Gotcha.
brontosaur in the movie,
Right.
and it's got some African name that I can't pronounce. I'd love for it to be a real dinosaur.
When it, as far as living on land, I don't know about dinosaurs. It would have to be in a place like a rainforest. Now the ocean is a whole different story.
Oh yeah, Megalodon and all that.
I think that's a complete possibility. I forgot what I was saying.
Dinosaurs.
I believe that a prehistoric animal is a possibility of some kind. whether that be a Bigfoot being a leftover, or whether it being something like Nessie in a deep water. Because if I'm not mistaken, there's caves in that lock that go to other places too. Correct? Other water sources.
Well, it's got a channel that leads to the ocean.
Okay, so
And I've thought about that, but like I said, at the end of the day, I stop and think something as big as they think it's just a plesiosaur,
right.
which a plesiosaur is like 3 times as big as a blue whale is. Something that big, even with the lock being as deep and all that, you think sooner or later somebody get a good picture, or the submarine would get it on sonar, or
At least if there's
something.
a breeding population.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to just see one. One's not going to live forever.
And they've been reporting it since what? At least the 1700s over there.
Right. So that
Loch
means there
Ness.
has to be some kind of breeding population. There has to be. I mean,
Yeah.
you would think.
If it's a natural creature.
Right.
Which I guess dinosaurs were natural creatures. I've never got a chance to ask one, but
they're probably more natural than we are.
well, like we've talked all night, the whole time, just about anything's more natural than us.
Got it.
Well, we just hit the 2-hour mark, and we said we were cutting off a half an hour ago.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it ain't your fault. I've been right there with you. Mom gets on me about this all the time too. She said, "You talk those people's legs off." Well, they talk my leg off too, Mom.
It'd make for a short podcast if you didn't.
Yeah. At least it's something, like I said, we could be doing a whole lot worse. We could be talking about a whole lot worse. There's podcasts out there about a whole lot worse.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. What's that?
Well, I appreciate you. I said it's been fun. I appreciate you having me.
I've had a great time. It's been a great conversation. I wish we had a few live watchers. Nobody bothered posing a question anywhere that I could see it. Ain't on Facebook.
I'm not famous enough.
That's me. I always say I ain't nobody important.
No, if people want to get a hold of me or email me or whatever, they can do it at the Nightmare Closet at yahoo.com, or just look me up on Facebook if you want to.
And that's your podcast, right?
The nightmarecloset.com and William Mitchem Jr.com. That's my website. The Nightmare Closet at yahoo.com is my email address. Now, Paranormal Me is the podcast that I'm going to be putting out here soon. I got a couple things on YouTube, but I haven't put it on Spreaker or iTunes or anything like that yet. So I'm getting more episodes under the belt. I just finally started it. I'd been in the middle of making a movie and doing a few other things, so it was kind of put on the back burner when it was initially my first thing that I was going to be doing. But you know how life goes.
Oh yeah.
And then the pandemic thing hit, and you would have thought I would have done it during all that, but I was doing other things during this time. So
that's one thing that's helped me. I've got a lot more free time on my hands than I used to have.
Right. Well, I thought I would have, but it ended up being the opposite. I was getting some educational things out of the way when it come to some certificates and stuff during that time, and then for some reason, or the wife and I got it in our own heads that we needed to stay home. We got put out of work for probably about 2 months. So we're like, well, we need to stay home and just stay home, because we work in the bio field. We're bio recovery and everything. So we knew how COVID worked and all that stuff. So but still, we didn't have to stay home. We could have went to the woods. We could have went to certain places that didn't involve people, but we mind tricked ourselves. But my wife's actually just now getting over COVID after all those precautions. We got it anyway, and I fared well, which I always thought if I got it, I was gone because I'm asthmatic, and I fared. It hardly bothered me. She ended up getting the pneumonia, the rash. She's got neurological issues to where she feels numb all over. She has she lost her taste and her smell, and all that. And she got rid of the pneumonia pretty quick, actually. But the rash and the numbness have been holding on forever. The rash is just now going away. And this was right after Christmas she got it. And it's just now going away with the rash, and the numbness is still affecting her, and they don't know if it'll ever go away.
They don't know a lot about it yet.
No, they don't know
as far as long-term effects go.
You got
Won't
it.
know
They don't
until
know
years down the
anything.
road.
Yeah, and we're not going to take the vaccine either. But they're not telling a lot of people at our own places that we contract out. There's doctors and people that have gotten really bad off, and they're not letting the public know everything. They want it to be the miracle cure, and I guarantee you, the vaccine is doing some wicked stuff to some people, especially people that had the rare symptoms of COVID. And some people are they're dropping dead and they're not reported.
Yeah.
And then the side effects that they look like. I don't mean to be funny or rude because the people are getting it, but there's some nurses, even some local here that have taken it and now they can't even walk a straight line. It looks like they're doing a jig going across it looks like they have maybe I don't even know what it looks like. I can't think of the disease at the moment, but it's a muscle thing, where they got the jerks and they can't talk right, their head's shaking, and it's because of the vaccine. That vaccine has not had enough studies to know the long-term side effects or what it's going to do to people in the future. And also here, people that have gotten the vaccine are still getting COVID.
I wondered about that because with any vaccine, you get the symptoms of whatever you're being vaccinated against.
Right.
And they keep reporting we had this many cases today and that many cases yesterday. I said, how do you know some of these people ain't got the symptoms from the vaccine?
Well, the symptoms from the vaccine, if they only have the mild symptoms, which is like pain in the arm or the flu-like feeling, they usually go away in a day or two.
Yeah.
But you're right. They're not saying whether people are being tested and it's showing up in a test from the vaccine. They're not reporting that either. So who knows?
I've always wondered about all the numbers and stuff right from the get-go. I believe the virus is real. My father had it.
The virus is real.
Yeah.
I know for 100% fact. Nobody needs to ask me to prove it because I won't. The numbers were falsified. The numbers were inflated. A lot had to do with hospitals getting money for saying it was COVID.
But I'd heard that.
Hospitals got paid. What was it? God, I may have my numbers wrong, but I'm throwing a number out there. So hospitals get paid so much every year for people that have the flu. Okay, say $1,500. COVID was way, way, way more than that. So the flu kind of disappeared. Okay, so they were also saying, and I know this for a fact, there was people being killed in car wrecks because of a friend of mine. Another friend's husband had kidney failure. And then another friend had a heart attack of my mom, or of my dad's. And then my mother-in-law, or not my mother-in-law, my dad's wife, my stepmother, her father died of dementia. All of those they tried listing as COVID, and the family said absolutely not. They even offered to pay them to say it was COVID. And they're like, absolutely not. Of course, that's here in Illinois, but I'm sure it happened all across the country.
I've heard stories like that from here.
The numbers were inflated. They're closer to being more realistic now than they were.
Mm-hmm.
But who do you believe? I tell people, here's the thing. I'm not getting the shot. You do what you want. You believe what you want. I know the virus is real. I know it's serious. I know it's dangerous. But they're also not telling everybody everything. And
I told Mom
I work in it every day.
Mom, when it comes to going to the doctor, I said, I'm not going to a doctor right now for anything. Because I could walk in with Indian arrows sticking out of me and they'd tell me I had COVID. And other than that, the last place I want to go in a pandemic is a doctor's office or a hospital.
Right.
Common sense tells me to stay out of both.
Exactly.
I would have to literally think I was dying before you get me in either right now.
Unfortunately, I have to go work at a hospital every day.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, well, that's understandable if you work there. But like I said, I'm not going unless I absolutely have to.
right. I don't blame you.
It's been a pleasure. I appreciate it.
It's been fun.
Yep. Thank you. Have a great night. God bless.
You as
We'll
well.
talk to you later. If you ever need me to, like I tell anybody that wants me to, I'll come on your podcast or whatever if you have an opening sometime.
Sounds
Now,
good.
like I tell people, I consider my experiences pretty tame or mundane compared to some other stories you read.
Any experience is better than no experience.
Yeah. Like I said, I've had a couple parts. Mom's actually had better. She won't come on and talk about it, but I can tell you about it when I do.
All right.
She's had more full-on sightings than I have. But where there's smoke, there's fire. When you've had a couple partial sightings, you got knocks, the house getting slapped, you're finding tracks, hearing whistles and screams and whoops. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
You know it.
I'm convinced what I'm dealing with. I may not be able to convince anybody else, but I'm convinced. So, like I said, if you ever want to need a guest or whatever to fill a hole in your schedule or whatever, and I can help you out, I'll be more than happy to.
All right.
I know right now, February 23rd, I think it is. It's a Wednesday. I'm supposed to be on Ricky Weaver in Georgia. He's going to have me on. Then Jeremiah Fountain said something about when they have an opening, have me on his. But other than that, it ain't like I've got a book type schedule months down the road, where I have to pencil you into my busy day.
Right.
Ain't like I'm from one interview to the next, like some movie star or something.
I don't think you want to be that kind of busy.
No. I don't want the paparazzi hanging out around outside my door.
Right.
Of course, I am the type I'd take a page out of Charlie Sheen's book and walk out with a 9-iron or something in my hand. Get off my lawn!
Right.
Well, you have a great one, man. I appreciate it. Can't thank you enough. God bless.
All right. Thank you. You take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.